Abraham wavered as he grew old without children, but God showed him the stars and reaffirmed his promise of descendants. Sarah laughed in doubt because of her age, yet God declared that nothing is too hard for him. Jacob, full of fear, saw a vision of a ladder at Bethel and received God's promise of protection. Joseph was sold as a slave, yet he held on to God's presence and did not let go of faith. The Israelites trembled at the Red Sea, but God opened a way before them. In the wilderness, they thirsted and complained, but God brought water from the rock. God gave manna each day, teaching that man does not live by bread alone, but by his word. Moses lifted his staff over the sea, clinging to God's command. Joshua felt afraid, but God said, "Be strong and courageous, for I am with you." At Jericho, God gave victory as the people obeyed his word and marched around the walls. Gideon saw himself as weak, but God said, "I will be with you." Hannah, barren and weeping, prayed earnestly and found peace in God's promise. David faced Goliath, choosing to trust in the name of the Lord over fear. During Absalom's rebellion, David fled in tears, but held on to God in the Psalms. Elijah, after victory at Mount Carmel, trembled at Jezebel's threat, yet heard God's gentle whisper. Jonah fled from God's call, but inside the great fish he prayed and turned back to God. Job, in deep suffering, confessed, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood firm before the fiery furnace, declaring God's power to save. Daniel, though threatened with the lion's den, continued to pray 3 times a day. Esther, facing death, declared with faith, "If I perish, I perish." Israel, in exile, found hope through Jeremiah's words of God's plans for them. Zerubbabel and the people grew weary, but God reminded them, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit." John the Baptist, in prison, doubted, but Jesus confirmed his works to strengthen him. The disciples panicked in the storm, but Jesus said, "Take heart, it is I." Peter walked on water, but sank in fear, and Jesus reached out his hand. The crowd demanded signs again, but Jesus said, "I am the bread of life." Martha grieved over Lazarus, but Jesus declared, "I am the resurrection and the life." In Gethsemane, the disciples fell asleep, but Jesus prayed steadfastly for strength. Peter denied the Lord 3 times, yet later was restored by Jesus' word. At the cross, the disciples scattered, but Jesus rose again to gather them. Thomas doubted the resurrection until he touched the wounds of Jesus. On the road to Emmaus, the disciples' hearts burned as Jesus opened the scriptures. The risen Lord restored his disciples in Galilee, giving them their mission again. At Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came, and the apostles preached boldly, no longer shaken.